Consistency isn't something that we speak about in heavy metal all of that often unless we are reviewing albums or comparing ones from the past to those of the present. Because after all, this isn't pop music. This isn't something where an album being good or bad is really manipulated so highly by the presence of massive hit singles, either that or some creative songwriting that wasn't present on albums beforehand. But that being said, just like in any other style of music, however, heavy metal being consistent is what keeps us coming back to some of those favorite artists. It's the thing that really drives us to really consume each and every one of their records and highly anticipate the next ones that are set to come out. With that being said, the past 10 years in heavy metal has seen an explosion within the scene, so what about these past 10 years? Who have been 10 of the most consistent bands? We're here to find that out. Here are 10 of the most consistent heavy metal bands of the past 10 years. And before you go ape on my list, put your list of your top 10 in the comments below. Number 10, Accept. Now, some may not be willing to accept this, considering Accept is a band that has been around for a long time. Their first album came out in 1979. However, there was a long period of time where they were completely dormant. The band was essentially dead. And then they decided, whenever the 2010 started, to really start anew with a brand new singer. And oh man, the 3 albums that followed have been nothing but consistent bliss. They've been absolutely fantastic. It added a certain dynamic to the band, a certain new edge, something that was not present from some of the last ideas that we got from Accept during the tail end of the 1990s. Because of that, Accept has definitely experienced a resurgence in interest, a fan base that is certainly getting younger considering the material has been that solid and really applied to their interests just as much as some of the old headbangers, and all in all, the 3 albums that we have gotten from this band have been absolutely terrific. Number 9, Ghost. Now, I understand that Ghost is a relatively new band, only 3 albums into their career and 2 EPs to boot. However, this is a group that's already showcased the ability to change things up a little bit, to add some more dynamic nature to their sound, to switch up things and cause some stirs, and based around that, this is why this band is on this list. Their opening album certainly gave them all the momentum in the world to continue and really gained them the acclaim that they needed to become one of heavy metal's early real favorites to become the next metal patriarch. But their albums that have really since followed have also given them that same claim to the throne, considering they've been able to add things and add a certain element to maturity of it. Sure, it may not sound like opus eponymous, but that's because it's not designed to. The storytelling and the overall mystique that they've been able to grant their band has also delivered them a lot of fans, not to mention a lot of curiosity. They won a Grammy earlier this year, and they weren't even able to go up onto the stage during the televised event, so they definitely have a chip on their shoulder. But the albums and the music have all been fantastic thus far. We hope that that continues. Number 8 is High on Fire. 4 albums in, 1 split, and of course there was the career before that. But in the past 10 years, High on Fire have definitely been on fire. They have had albums that have just really continued to sort of boost up that ladder one by one, just getting better and better with each release. And consequently, based around that, they've gained a haughty fan base, and they've gained a fan base that's willing to really look forward to their next outcome with a lot of anticipation and with a lot of curiosity. This is a band that hasn't quite yet hit that Album of the Year pillar. However, they've been gaining ground with each and every release. And that's really not only on this channel, but also really around the heavy metal community. High on Fire went from a band that a lot of people, tended to know about, but nobody really said much about, to a band that's constantly on the watch from metalheads whenever they have an upcoming album that's about to drop. Number 7, we have Enslaved. 5 albums and 2 splits in that time period, which gives them more than really the previous 3. However, this is a band where their consistency is pretty awe-inspiring considering where they are in their careers. This is a band that started in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and they have been able to release consistent records really throughout 2 eras of their career. During that initial state where they really took the Viking and a real extreme center of black metal to a little bit of a different level, and now adding progression to this has certainly involved and inspired a wave of new bands to attempt the same. Now, we, of course, have Axima Epica Odine, which was the album of the year, the very first year that this channel was out, and really the releases that have since followed have all fared very well also. But this is a band that throughout the past 10 years have really taken on a couple of different motifs. They've become newly popular once again, they have released terrific albums, and they've also become terrific ambassadors to really the scene that surrounds them. Really now it's to the point that where if Enslaved takes you out on a tour, that's a big ticket. And it's definitely something that has been paved partially by the consistency of their studio material. Number 6 is Between the Buried and Me, with 4 albums and 1 EP during that stretch, including probably one of the best albums that we've gotten over the past 10 years, which is Colors. Between the Buried and Me may not necessarily have topped Colors ever since its release, but it's definitely not an easy thing to do. The Great Misdirect did what it could, but it came up short to Parallax EPs, and then the Parallax full length certainly went in a different direction in order to maybe try to attempt the feat. And then Coma Ecliptic just seemed like it was trying its own thing and not really caring about topping Colors, and ended up being the second best album of that stretch. This is a band that really hasn't laid a dud ever since they came out, and so it's not a real surprise that they are one of the more consistent bands of the past 10 years, and really, it shows. They have popularity on their side, there are a lot of people that respect this group, and this is definitely one where newer metalheads should investigate them to showcase just how chaotic, different, and also artistic metal can truly be. Number 5 is Cattle Decapitation, who with 4 studio albums. And really, these guys have been doing something that's different than consistency. They've been overly consistent, to the point where each album has been subsequently better than the prior release that came before it, and that's exactly what you want. That sort of meteoric rise is typically something that you see at the beginning of a band's career. However, they already had a couple of studio albums underneath of their belt by the time that 2006 came around. The fact that they've only continued to improve, that they've only consistently gotten better, has certainly paved the way for the next coming years to be very, very good news for the Cattle Decapitation camp, and not to mention for the fan base. If you really like the Anthropocene Extinction from 2015, look out for whatever their next album's able to do. It may be better than that. Number 4, Steven Wilson, with 4 solo albums, the Storm Corrosion album, Porcupine Tree. There's a lot. There's really a case to be made for Steven Wilson for any sort of consistency, considering he's doing it over a myriad of different styles, and it seems like with every style he does gain acclaim, and it does have something a little bit new or unique to bring to the table. The man is just a pure songwriter, and that's what makes it kind of seem a little bit easy for the guy to get some instantaneous acclaim for what he does. This is something that also he tries to take things to, something different to the table with each passing album, with Hand Can Honor Race being more of a concept release, The Raven That Refused to Sing being something different than that. Same could be said for Grace for Drowning, going back to Insurgencies, going back to The Incident from Porcupine Tree, Storm Corrosion being with Michael Acker. You can see where this is going. This is going with a man that is consistently just going into the studio and trying new things, allowing the influences and the collective love of music to really drive him to wherever it is that he wants to go. And based around that, and based around the albums that he's released during this period being absolutely exceptional, with 1 album of the year already underneath of his belt, Steven Wilson may actually just be the definition of consistency, but he's still only number 4. Number 3 is Alcé, with 5 albums and various splits in his corner, and 1, of course, that is forthcoming. Now, this is a group that certainly has been very consistent in the way in which this craft has been molded, not to mention in seeing how the black gaze movement and the post-black metal movement has sort of risen up around him and sort of swirled around him and sort of taken force. This is absolutely insane sometimes to witness. But every single album that Alcé seems to release has something that just gives it a little bit more charm, a little bit more beauty. The very first time that we heard this beauty within the savagery of black metal, some of us said, well, I've heard something like that before, but not like this. And those that have never heard something like this before said, I think I need new pants. Based around that, Alcé has been able to build off of that idea and just build more impressive soundscapes as each passing album has continued. While some may argue which is the best of the albums that have been released by Alcé so far, this is also something where the consistency is in the fact that there's been no duds among this discography, and the name still continues to carry a lot of weight going into 2016 and going into Kotama. Number 2, we have Ihsan with 6 albums. Now this is one that was almost omitted because the last album that we got prior to Arctis is one that many people felt was really, really rugged. But it deserves to be on here. Ihsan deserves to be on here, considering even with that album, in fact, definitely including that album, the consistency has been there. And the consistency has been there in 2 spots. It's been in really delivering masterful works with all the studio albums that we've gotten, and also, whenever he's decided to go off and, try something new, it's been very well executed as well. The mob may not agree, but whenever I listened to that album, the darkness just pulsated and emanated, oozed from it. It did everything that it was truly meant to do. Not to mention, it was a bit of a chronicle of Ihsan's own thoughts and feelings at that time. So, you have to give it a little bit of credit. Overall, though, Ihsan has taken that solo project and risen it to real acclaim. It's almost as though his past projects never left. Either that, or this is the new version of it. And that's really because that it is. This is a name that's going to consistently be relevant for a long time, and hopefully Ihsan doesn't stop manufacturing albums anytime soon. Because if Arctis is any indication, he might still have accolades yet to come, with Album of the Year 2016 just a couple months away. And that brings us to number 1, which is Devin Townsend, with 10 plus releases over various platforms. Now this one might seem like it's a bit obvious. It's the man that's released an album at least every year within the past decade. However, like Steven Wilson, this is one that's been painted more so by Devin's ability to really experiment with different things. And this is not something where he's merely experimented solely within the heavy metal universe. He's actually gone outside of the heavy metal universe in order to get some of his inspiration, and he's found success with it. He's found success releasing albums that are a little bit more low-key, more atmospherically driven, that don't really have much of a heavy metal register to it. He's done albums that some consider to be folk or country, Americana, whatever you wish to really describe it, and he's found success doing that. He's done concept releases, he's done heavy releases, and every single one of them have some sort of value. All of them may not necessarily be the socks blow-offer, and that's a really, really weird statement that should maybe be turned into one of his song titles, but all of them experiment and try something brand new and are at least consistent enough. They're not albums that you would say are absolute stinkers or duds. You were just expecting the 100 out of 100 album and got one that was maybe an 80. Is that unfair? Well, is it also fair to say that it's a stinker simply because it's, very good as opposed to exceptional? Either way, consistency seems to be Devin Townsend's middle name. And really, it would be alright. Devin Consistency Townsend. DCT. I have no joke for that. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 10 of the most consistent heavy metal acts of the past 10 years. Like I said, before you go ape on this list, let me know in the comments below what your list is. I'm CoverKillerNation, and I'll talk to you later. Take care.